This is Allie.
And this is Hallie.
And this is Read It Next.
So, hey guys, welcome back to Read It Next with Hallie and Allie. So before we even start off the show, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Faith Sanchez, who I found on YouTube, who was super kind enough to let us use her music in our show.
I don't know if you can notice, but it even plays in our background while we're speaking, and she's really just made the show amazing for us.
It honestly made our day, getting her approval to use the covers. So thank you, Faith.
Thank you, Faith.
Thank you for helping make Read It Next, because I don't think it would be the same without it.
It would not be the same. Your music has really changed our podcast for the better.
So if you're interested in listening to more of Faith's stuff, I'm going to have all of her info linked down below, so I would definitely suggest checking her out because she is truly amazing. And yeah, let's get into today's episode. Okay, so we're back with our Twilight episode.
Yeah, and I think Hallie will agree that this is a very special episode for us.
Very special.
Twilight is honestly what started us reading and started it all for us, so, it's great to go back.
Reading, thick books, books that should probably take you at least 4 days to read. I know I read the first one in one night with Jersey Shore playing in the background.
Which is a special feat. This was the first real series that got me into reading. I always was a big reader when I was younger, but it wasn't until this series that I started really getting into young adult books. And, I've probably read this series over 30-something times before my mom was like, please God, just pick up another book, anything. And so then that started my vampire phase.
I carried those things around with me. I don't know what I was thinking in middle school with those huge ass books in my bag every single day.
I mean, if you want an embarrassing story from middle school about Twilight, we can talk about the fact that I made people call me Alice.
Stop.
So I have to carry that knowledge around the rest of my life. So now you guys do too.
I remember when my friends told my mom I had an Edward poster in my locker, and I was so embarrassed.
I mean, Team Edward went hard.
I think that's the craziest part is the Team Edward, Team Jacob thing really was a huge rivalry.
I wasn't even friends with any Team Jacobs. I think they were just completely different people from me.
How crazy is that? A book is determining who you're friends with based on what fictional character they're rooting for. So for anyone who hasn't read Twilight, which I think is probably a very small number of people, do you want to go through the plot line, do a quick recap?
Yeah, let's do a quick little recap. I'm sure most of you guys remember probably what happens throughout the series. Even if you don't, here's a little recap for you.
Little refresher for everyone.
So obviously Bella Swan. She goes to Forks to go live with her dad, and that's where she meets Edward, and Edward is a little interesting.
Falls in love.
Yeah, they're a little interesting. They have a little something. She falls in love with him, and then, they kind of come to a problem of he's a vampire. Oops. Oopsie. Yeah, that happens to the best of us, Yeah. So
it happens to the best of us.
It happens. We all have one person we might not want to fall in love with.
Then we have things I feel it was a very rocky start from the beginning.
It really was a rocky start. For one, and we're just talking about Twilight itself, we can talk about the best scene in any film or novel, which is the baseball scene.
Any film.
I know that's not really for the novel itself, but you can't read that scene now without thinking of the film version, which is
iconic. I think, you know what it was? That scene had the best music.
When they hit the baseball and it's the thunder, it's just, everything about that scene was woo. But that, of course, led to James.
Led to our biggest problem.
Which we all know how that turns out, or if you don't, it does not turn out well for anybody.
Not good.
So to avoid James, they all go on a little run, and James eventually catches up with Bella because Bella pulls a stupid move and actively seeks him out.
I think we need to backtrack a little bit and talk about how it's described as Bella having this intoxicating blood scent.
Supposedly it hits Edward more than anybody, but obviously, yeah, James said a little bit
too, because that's what really...
James just kind of wanted to eat her in general, and then it was when Edward defended her that he was like, ooh, this is a game.
Got defensive, yeah.
I love seeing games on your life.
Oh, we should also, for any new Twilight peeps here, the Cullens were the vegetarian vampires. They only ate animals. They did not feed on humans. They all had the same eye color considering how they were all adopted. But we have the Cullens trying to protect Bella on the run from James.
Yep.
Bella decides to be Bella
and just kind of runs off to meet him, thinking that she had good intentions to save her mother, which obviously James did not have her mother.
Did not. It was an old voice recording. It was a ruse. And
Yep.
Bella fell right into it.
And that was James' plan, and he meets her at the ballet studio where he breaks her leg, throws her around a bit before Edward comes, but right before Edward comes and saves her, he gives her a little kiss on the wrist with his teeth.
And a vampire bite hurts. It is not a fun, cute little thing. Apparently vampire venom is...
Apparently feels like fire just going through your veins.
Yeah.
So, can imagine that would feel a little painful.
So then they find Bella.
They do.
The men of the Cullen family rip James apart and throw him into a fire because that's the only way to destroy a vampire.
It's a pretty hard way.
That's
too.
intense.
Kind of hot, though, watching it. Not gonna lie.
Carlisle, Edward's adoptive father, tells Edward that the only way to save Bella is to suck the venom out of her. But,
And,
of course,
Edward...
there's that blood issue.
Yeah, Edward is infatuated with her blood.
It
doesn't work out well.
He
almost loses it.
Almost loses it. Carlisle is able to rein him back in, but there was a moment there where you think he is going to go too far.
Personally, I think he should have, but
we will get into that.
that's my opinion on things. So yeah, then they set up the whole scene so it looks like Bella just flew through a window,
and
as
her
we
parents
all
believe
do.
it. Her parents believe that she fell and went through a window, and that's how she broke her leg, and they, honest to goodness, fully believe it. No questions asked. Yeah, that's something Bella... Isn't that a line in the book? Yeah, that's something she would do.
Yeah, that's something she would do. Like, if my parents were like, yeah, she fell through a window in a hotel, just straight out. Yeah, just typical Allie things. Like, I'd be like, what?
Like, I know I am clumsy, but falling through a window, wouldn't you want to talk to the hotel or anyone around? Maybe it's just me.
They really covered that up. And obviously Meyer says that no one else really looked into it because it was just planned so well that no one thought otherwise. I feel like as a mother, if my daughter flew
through a window,
I'd be like, can I see the camera? Like, what happened? Like, I need to see.
What is going on?
But, she's just clumsy. But because of her dangerous situation, she's like, hey, Edward, I want you to change me now. It should have happened. You should have just let it happen.
While they were at prom. And she asked very nicely. She wasn't aggressive about it.
She's like, I think this would make the best sense for us. And, thinking back on it as a 23-year-old looking at a 17-year-old's actions, I'm like, sweetie, it's your first boyfriend. Slow it down. Don't kill yourself 100%. Over him, literally. But, storyline, plot-wise, character-wise, made the most sense. But he says no.
Solved a lot of issues.
Right then and there. Would have just whoop. But he said no because he didn't want to
damn her soul.
Didn't want that because he thought he was just an absolute monster and didn't want to make her a monster. Which, fair enough, I guess. But would be annoying if I was in her shoes.
Then we get into New Moon.
New Moon.
Bella's still going strong with Edward.
She's
It's
about
her-
to turn 18.
Her birthday, big 18. She can vote now.
She could vote. And honestly, that angers her because Edward is, of course, stuck at 17. So she's even more insistent that he changed her now. But he still says no, so they throw a little birthday party.
Wait, but a party that she did not want. She did not want this party.
I mean, she didn't want anything to do with her birthday.
She just wanted to have a casual day, living life. The Cullens forced a party on her.
Yeah. I'm just remembering now, she kept having those weird dreams of her as an old lady.
Yeah.
And like, those kind of stuck with me. Because now I'm like, oh god, I'm aging. But, so they throw her a party. And she's opening some gifts, as one does at a party. And what happens? She gets a paper cut.
Whoopsies.
Paper cut in a house full of vampires. And usually, you know, that wouldn't be a problem. They're all vegetarians. They got some self-control. Except Jasper. Jasper, my boy. He has very little self-control.
Which I don't understand.
He's supposed to be the soldier. You'd think a little more self-control would...
Especially, like, they're going to a high school with teenagers.
You're telling me no one has a little accident at school? Also, TMI, but there's girls at the school, like...
I was just thinking that.
Monthly scenarios going on.
I was just thinking that.
How do you avoid that? That's just a little plot hole right there, you know? He's gonna always be surrounded by blood.
Consistency obviously was not a thing when these books were being written.
No, they were not.
But Bella does get the paper cut.
So she gets a paper cut, and Jasper starts to, well, yummy, And so Edward, in his defense to save Bella, yeets her into the wall. Like, yeets her just away, and she bangs her head. It makes the whole scenario worse, because now she's bleeding not only from her paper cut, but a huge gash in her head.
It was it went from 0 to 100
so fast.
Very quickly.
Like, it was just very unneeded. I mean, if you're gonna yeet someone against a wall, do the vampire who can actually afford to be yeeted.
Yeah, not the human who is easily breakable.
Yeah, like we've already proved that she broken real easily.
When she went through that window, apparently.
When she went through the window. You know, that happens. And you break. As humans, we break. And he starts to feel really bad. So he takes her out into the woods, because everyone wants to be dumped in the middle of the woods.
And then, they're in the Pacific Northwest. It is cold and rainy and cloudy all the time. So he breaks up with her in the woods and leaves her.
Doesn't, like, walk her home. Like, this is Bella, so, like, if you have any knowledge on Bella, you know, girl does not have her head screwed on right. She can't do anything right. So you leave this girl in the middle of the woods, you don't walk her back home or anything, and you dump her. So now she's depressed in the woods.
And it was like the day after her birthday. Like, are you serious? You dumped her the day after her birthday.
Really bad week for her in general. So yeah, she kind of just sits there for a bit, I think.
Like, she really just loses any essence she had of herself, because it was so wrapped up in Edward. So then he's gone, and essentially she's just this shell of a human now.
Yep. And so when she finally gets back home, after a long search, I think Charlie has to go find her.
Yeah, they sent a search party. Yeah,
because she's just been out there for so long.
In the woods.
In the woods, and raining, forks. She then goes back, and she falls into a major depressive episode where we don't even see most of it, because it just kind of goes through the months.
Yeah.
But she eventually gets a little reckless. I would say she might just start rebelling against life in general, and so
that's
in a way just becomes suicidal, and just if she dies sort of thing, and she kind of wants it.
Like, she just starts taking a lot of risks with her life, and they're definitely unnecessary risks.
Super unnecessary risks. She knows, I think in the back of her head, She thinks that if she goes far enough, Edward will come back and, like, help her. She's kind of delusional. But she's got her friend Jake.
Yes, Jacob. Nice
friend
Jacob, who he's known her growing up. Their fathers are best pals. Jacob, he's always kind of had a little crush on Bella.
He's definitely always had a crush on Bella. It obviously isn't as full-blown because he knows that she was with Edward. But now that she's broken up with Edward and she's kind of back on the market despite being depressed, he's kind of getting closer, and he likes that.
And then Bella starts hanging out with him more on the reservation because Jacob is Native American. And there is, like, some mystery because there's definitely a strong dislike towards the Cullens even as they're gone from the Quileute tribe. But Bella doesn't know exactly what is going on.
She's just kind of
she's really
stuck in her own
world.
realm.
Yeah.
She's stuck in her own realm. She doesn't really care what's going on in general in life. And so that just kind of leaves her to the moment where I'm pretty sure, does she jump off a cliff? Or does she fall?
No, they were cliff jumping.
Yeah, so she jumps off a cliff, and she manages to fall in a very rocky area, also a rocky area with waves, big waves, and she gets hit by a wave which crushes her into a rock, and I think she just, like, hits her head again, always hitting her head. She gets herself pretty hurt, and I think someone saves her. It's been a while since I read these books, but someone saves her. But Alice, on the other side, has been keeping an eye on her this whole time through her visions.
Alice has visions. Yep. Love Alice's visions.
So Alice this whole time, for Edward's sake, has been watching her, knowing that she's been making some iffy decisions, but she's still alive. So she's given Edward the bare minimum info. But when she jumps off the cliff, guess what Alice sees? She's dead. Bella died. So she tells Edward, sorry, your love of your life is now dead.
Great.
And
this story just takes so many turns. It's just like, what is going on? The emotional roller coaster.
So, Edward himself has been pretty depressed since leaving Bella, but knowing that she's now dead, not knowing that she was saved, he decides to commit suicide one of the only ways that vampires can, which is to expose themselves in front of the Volturi, which is in Italy.
And exposing yourself as a vampire, like stepping out into the sun so you sparkle, because you can't forget vampires sparkle in this series, is a capital offense in vampire culture. So Edward knows that if he does this, he's signing his death wish.
Exactly. So he goes to Italy. He flies out there with the sole intent of just dying. He doesn't care about anybody else at this point. He doesn't even care that he's probably going to put his family at risk by doing this. He just wants to die.
But then Alice sees that in a vision as well.
Yep. And I think Alice also sees that, hey, she's not dead.
Yes, but she saw it a little, like, by the time Alice saw that, he was already in Italy.
Yeah. So, too late to tell him, so she goes to get Bella and is like, you're the only one who can stop this from happening. We need to go help him. So yeah, they all go to Italy, and this is actually a really good film scene. Edward is about to expose himself. He's got his shirt and he's ripping it open, and Bella is just flying through the crowd. For a girl who's, like, supposedly really clumsy,
she made it through very easily.
Direct hit, really. And so Edward, thank God, sees her. I think she catches him just in time. And now, for all intents and purposes, they're all okay. They have each other. They're back.
But then they're summoned by the Volturi because Edward was about to do a big no-no.
He was. So they get in a little trouble.
And then,
which obviously then brings Bella into the light of Volturi, which is, you really shouldn't be around humans as a vampire. Yeah. So that's also a big no-no. And they expect that to be rectified.
We have Alice as a saving grace once again.
She really saves everyone in this series multiple times.
I was just saying, like, especially in this book, she really came through.
they would be in some really bad situations without Alice, because she can always see what the outcomes are. So in any conversation, she knows, which route to take that will cause the least amount of tension.
And I think it's in this book where Alice tells the Volturi that she does see Bella being turned in the future.
Yeah. So she saves day on that one, and they all go back to Forks.
Yay! But even before that, you still have Jacob not so happy that Bella is back with Edward. Then you learn that there are werewolves.
Which, by the way, I would never read another story with two love interests there. I
don't like triangles.
I like my one, you keep the one. Make me feel good. But yeah, so now we have the wolves versus the vampires, aka Team Edward or Team Jacob.
And then that does lead us into Eclipse.
And this is really where Victoria comes back into play. And Victoria was James' girlfriend. They were together, they were like bonded. And once James was obviously killed by the Cullen family, she seeks revenge.
I honestly think Eclipse was the most interesting book out of the four.
Oh, same. I definitely reread that one like the most, besides like I think Twilight. But out of all of them, definitely the best, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just think that this one had so much substance. Like you had a lot more action in this one.
Yeah, definitely in terms of plot, there's a lot more going on.
Because in this plot, you have people going missing, like young adults going missing. Yep. It's Victoria starting a little baby vampire army in order to seek her revenge.
Undead army. And so to stop that, or to try and obviously handle it, they won't have to get Bella out of the way because she's still human. So can't have her fighting in that. But they obviously have to stop the undead army from coming into Forks.
And killing people.
And killing everyone.
To do this, they enlist the help of what seems to be their mortal enemy, which are the wolves.
So this is the first instance, I think, in at least their history that they've ever worked together.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, so this is almost monumental for the history of the vampire and the wolves, because no one wants all these undead little baby vampires coming into anyone's territory, and obviously this undead army isn't going to follow the treaty that the Cullens have set up with the wolves, so everyone is in danger if they don't stop this.
Yes. So you have the big battle scene with the Cullens and the wolves and Victoria's baby vampire army.
After they have the whole fighting thing, and I think the Volturi then come because they're making such a scene.
And Bella's still human.
Bella's still human. Oopsies. Sorry, we haven't changed her yet. We'll get right on that.
It's a coming. Not yet, but it's coming. Yet. That's the only thing about Alice's vision, is that there is no exact time on when Bella was going to be changed. Just that it was in the future. It was a decision that was definitely going to be made, and it was going to happen, so it saved their necks a bit with the Volturi.
Yeah, and I don't think the Volturi know the full extent of Alice's power, that anything could be changed on a dime and it would change the vision. So to them, if Alice has a vision of her changed, she's gonna change no matter what. It was also in this book that really started the rivalry between Edward and Jacob.
Yes.
So now that Bella's been hanging out with both Jacob and Edward, she realizes that she kind of likes both.
Edward's like real jealous side coming out. Like he doesn't want her anywhere around Jacob. Totally ignoring the fact that these two did grow up together.
They were childhood best friends. Like they have a history.
Yeah, there's definitely a closer age gap between the two.
Yeah, versus like 117 and 17 versus like 16 and 17.
Yeah.
So you definitely a little bit more compatible.
You definitely see that aggression between the two, I guess you could say.
Yeah. They start to butt heads
A lot.
And it doesn't help that Jacob tries to kiss Bella, and Bella, you know, it definitely hurts her hand pretty bad, punching him in the face. So Edward gets pretty upset at that, which, I mean, yeah, if someone tried to kiss my girlfriend, I'd be pretty mad too. So fair enough on Edward on that one, but he's definitely a bit controlling throughout the book. And it's even at the end, I think she realizes that she's in love with Jacob, but not as much as she's in love with Edward.
More of like a more brotherly sort of love.
Yeah, like, I do love you, but I'm still gonna be with Edward. Yeah. He's my homeboy. You know, I wanted to die when he left me. How could I ever replace someone like that?
Which, very dramatic. Like, guys, they are still in high school. What is going on?
She's 17. Or she's now 18.
She's
sorry.
18. Can't forget that birthday.
Can't forget that wonderful birthday she had. But, yeah, I'm sure, you know, never to disqualify anyone's love at a young age, but I'm sure enough of you have experienced relationships that you've had when you were younger that obviously did not turn out well.
It also did not help that during the big battle scene, or before the big battle scene, I want to say, Edward decided to propose to Bella.
Yes, it was right before the battle scene, and they were all in the mountain camping, and he proposes, and Jacob overhears.
Because he definitely did that on purpose, because wolves have super hearing as well. So that was definitely a snub to Jacob.
Yeah, which, I mean, if someone was using my proposal to be also petty at the same time, wouldn't be too happy about that.
I would have given the ring back. Because are you really doing this out of love, or are you doing this just to have the upper hand?
Yeah, well, Bella did not think that way, and she was just ecstatic that they're continuing the relationship.
And that brings us to Breaking Dawn.
Yep, and starts with their wedding.
Yay! That she invited all of the friends that she completely stopped talking to.
Everything's going good, except, like in every single book, Bella still wants to be changed, but this is kind of her compromise at the moment. Yes, that they'll get married, and
first.
Yeah, so they're gonna get married.
Yay.
And so they have a beautiful little wedding, and that leads to the honeymoon
on Carlisle and Esme's private island.
Must be nice.
Yeah. Bella just wants to have a normal honeymoon. It seems like it's gonna work out, then it doesn't. It really just went downhill super fast, as like the rest of this book series.
Yeah,
just everything starts out so well and goes downhill very fast.
And it starts with them consummating their marriage.
Yes.
Which is the first time they've really been intimate the entire series, because beyond kisses or whatever, Edward hasn't really let his control go. So they have he's worried about what happens. Yeah. But she doesn't care. She wants him. And so they do. And he breaks the bed.
Yes.
He breaks the bed. He also leaves her with a few bruises, which he feels absolutely horrible about.
To the point where he doesn't want to touch her again.
Yeah, he doesn't want to touch her. He's done. He's full of guilt. He's like, I can't do this anymore. I just hurt you. And she's like, bro, it's a few bruises. Like, a bruise like an apple. You can't.
Yeah.
But, so, she's trying to convince him everything's fine until everything is not fine.
Bella's having some odd cravings. And she eats the raw chicken from the fridge.
She also starts to feel a little sick. Honestly, I would think that'd be from the weird cravings. But she goes to Carlisle.
But then she first chalks it up to just the island. Island's making her sick.
I mean, to be fair to her, I guess you wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
I mean, hindsight is always 20/20.
But, they call up Carlisle. Bella's pregnant.
She's pregnant.
What?
that's when, in the movie at least, he says, we're gonna get this thing out of you. And
that was, some of the dialogue in this saga was just something else.
It's iconic, that's for sure.
You have Rosalie, Edward's other adoptive sister, who hated Bella from the start. Now likes Bella because Bella is having a baby, which is all Rose ever wanted.
Yeah, Rose has always, she never wanted to be a vampire. She always wanted to have the human life of getting married, you know, falling in love, getting married, having children, and then dying old with the person that she loved. That's really all she ever wanted, and when she got turned into a vampire, obviously that all had to come to a halt. Mm-hmm. So seeing Bella, you know, be human, she was always angry at Bella, but out of jealousy that she gets to live a life and she's trying to throw it away now to be with Edward. So she hated Bella for that, but now that Bella is pregnant and has a chance to have a baby, she's on full mother mode around her and is taking care of everything.
And then you have to keep in mind that this baby is killing Bella.
It's like a parasite inside of her.
It is completely draining all of her energy, all of her life. It's really overpowering her to the point where Bella has to start drinking blood to survive, even though she is still human.
Yep. So she starts drinking blood. I think she even thinks it tastes good. She craves it.
Yeah.
And all throughout this, she sees Jake, and Jake is obviously extremely worried for her because she looks like she's dying.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's in love with her, so to see the person you love look like that, I'm sure is rough. And so everyone tries to convince her to get rid of the baby, but, you know, she knows that she can't do that to Edward, to the family, to herself. So
it's
the baby
really
continues.
Everyone against Bella and Rosalie. Because Rosalie was really the only one on her side with, nope, you're keeping the baby.
Yeah, so that's why Rosalie was so protective, because everybody wanted this baby gone.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't. She keeps it, and then she starts to go through vampire labor.
Yeah, where the baby, it's not regular labor. This baby is eating itself out of her, if I remember correctly.
Yep. It starts eating itself out of her. I think Edward steps in to help it, cuts open her stomach. And obviously, if you have a baby eating through your stomach lining, or I guess your uterus lining, and eating through your intestines and everything that's inside of you.
And it's killing her. It is killing Bella.
You don't survive that.
They have this plan that once Bella gives birth, she will be on the edge of death, basically. So this is the time to inject her with Edward's venom to start the change.
Yep. So they stab her in the heart, give her a little venom, and I think at the start nothing happens, and they think that she's just gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Jake freaks out and goes to kill the baby, because the baby is everybody's problem now. It's also, we don't know what it is. So let's go kill the monster baby. He looks at the baby and boom.
Imprints on the baby.
He imprints on the baby. Ooh, which we will get in later, because that's a whole thing.
And then I think it's at this point Jake is just, he's done with supernatural anything. He goes to Charlie and changes in front of him.
He strips down naked, which of course Charlie is like, excuse me, what are you doing? But then he changes into a wolf.
And then Charlie knows about wolves, but he doesn't explicitly know about vampires. He knows there's something off with the Cullens because timelines and excuses aren't adding up anymore, but he doesn't know exactly what they are, just that they're deaf, not human.
He's deaf, bit sus on them, but no proof. Can't accuse him of anything. So then, after a while, the venom does work, and boom. Bella is now a vampire. She's gotten her wish. After 4 books, she's finally changed. And
she just wants to see her baby.
she really, she's now taken onto the mother role. She's got her husband, she's got her baby, and everything should be okay at this point. Except
but is
it's
it
not.
ever okay in Twilight?
No, you always have a problem.
Bella sees her baby girl named Renesmee after her mother Renee and Edward's mother Esme. Everyone now loves this baby that they were ready to kill 48 hours prior.
She's the apple of everyone's eye, even though they all tried to abort her. They tried to kill her when she was born. But now that she's a cute little baby and Bella's alive, we love her. We love her. We love the baby.
You see that Jacob is kind of cozied up to the baby. Bella's like, hey, what's going on here? Oh, Jacob has imprinted on the baby. Bella loses it. And I think she had every right to lose it.
She had absolutely every right to lose it on him right then and there.
It's a baby.
It's a baby. If I found out someone was in love with my baby, or was gonna be in love with my baby, yeah, I honestly, they all think that her reaction to it is a bit much and all that. I don't think her reaction was enough.
Then there's the nickname, Nessie.
Nessie. The Loch Ness Monster.
You named my baby after the Loch Ness Monster. Probably one of my favorite lines in the entire franchise.
It's a really good line.
Then you have word getting out about this baby because someone sees Renesmee playing. Renesmee grows at an accelerated rate. So they're seeing Renesmee as, I think, a toddler playing, and they think the Cullens created a child vampire, which is a
huge no-no.
Huge no-no. We get some history about child vampires that absolutely could not control their thirst because they don't have the mental capacity to do so. Word gets back to the Volturi. Volturi's pissed.
Yeah, they're pretty pissed. And
Volturi
so this family's been a thorn in their side now for a bit.
For quite some time.
Yeah.
They decided they're going to make the trip to Forks to see what's going on, because if the Cullens are creating child vampires, there's definitely a punishment that has to be doled out. But then you have the Cullens sort of gathering their witnesses to show that Renesmee was conceived and born. She was not made.
Nope.
Which is their fighting argument, that this little girl was born, not made. So you have the Cullens gathering friends from pretty much every part of the world, this is really the first time you see vampires outside of like the Cullen family and the trio of nomads that first attacked them. This is really the only time you see any other sort of vampires.
They also find other creations like Renesmee.
Yes.
There's a few other ones out there, and obviously with their help, that's a pretty good argument against against them creating this child. They actually, they did create it, but not with their teeth.
But you have the Volturi coming. I think the Volturi, they were ready to just end the whole Cullen family at this point. They were done.
They definitely came in with full intents to be like, you guys are too much. You're risking our whole lives. You've been with humans. It's just time just to end you all.
So you have the Volturi coming with their backup, their crew. You have the Cullens with all of their friends, and it's a standoff. You have, again, thankfully, Alice and her visions showing what the outcome could be, which is complete and utter slaughter. You have Renesmee that has some of Edward's powers, like some telekinetic powers, where she's able to share her memories with other people, which is really what saved them.
Helpful. Yeah, that's super helpful on their end.
So Renesmee is able to share that she was in fact born, not made. Are things a little tense still? Of course.
Yeah.
Did everyone, for the most part, leave alive? Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, definitely.
For the most part.
all our major players came out
alive
on top.
Yeah.
So that was kind of their solution to the whole Volturi situation. And after that, as far as we know,
they're living happily ever after.
And that's pretty much the whole series right there and then.
Yeah. So let's get into some things we liked, some things we didn't like, some problem areas, how the series would fare 2015 to now. Let's just go over all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think before we get into our many problems with the series, I think we should definitely highlight what we did like about the series. And I mean, they are entertaining. You can't say that they are not entertaining. They definitely hold your attention. There's plot twists all around. There's so many events happening. You definitely never lose interest.
I think the fact that middle school Hallie really sat and read the first book in one night and made my mom take me to Target to get the next one the day after, it was entertaining. Even people who didn't like to read Twilight.
And honestly, that's really big in itself, that it did open up a lot of new readers.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the movies were really good, created a whole media aspect about it.
It really created like an era of pop culture. Like, there's that definite Twilight era.
There's definitely before Twilight and after Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
And as a culture, I think Twilight in some ways did progress us.
Yeah.
Specifically in what we now watch as a society. You know, I don't know how much interest a lot of the new young adult books would have ever gotten if Twilight wasn't a thing. I don't know if Hunger Games would have ever really been in movies. I don't like Divergent. It really opened up a whole new way for young adult books to come front and center and get more attention that they probably would not have. We definitely have that to thank for Twilight, but
you can't have the good without the bad.
You definitely cannot have the good without the bad. And, you know, although Twilight was monumental, especially for our generation, it was also highly controversial about who liked it, who hated it. I'm sure I wasn't alone being one of the people who was obsessed with it and then hated it for years because society was like, you should hate these books. And I was like, you know what? I do hate these books now. But
and I think
moved past that, but
it's even more controversial now that everyone who initially did read the books as kids, we're all grown up now.
Yeah, we can think critically now a lot easier. And we aren't blinded by what we like.
We see a lot more of the problem areas in Twilight, you can say.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that flew over our heads as kids, we see them now and it's like, whoa, that's definitely not right.
The standard in writing and the standard in books, especially in young adult, I think has significantly increased since Twilight has been around. I mean, I was just rereading Twilight, I think this past April, and obviously I'm an adult now. I'm 23. I read these when I was like 11, not even, like, I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read them when I was younger, I obviously didn't see anything wrong with, like, the writing specifically. Like, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Now that I've read hundreds of books out there and I've gone through an English degree, reading those books they were hard.
Yeah.
The writing is very simplistic. There's really not much detail. The characters don't have really any development towards them.
And like I said, the lack of consistency is monumental.
Yeah, a
there
lot
are
of
so
plot
many
holes.
Little things. It's just like, it would have been so easy to just put something in there to make it make sense, and it was just completely looked over because, again, we weren't looking for those things as kids.
No, we were enjoying the story as kids. We weren't, digging deep into it, but now we are. And
we're gonna dig. Let's do some digging.
Yeah. I think the characters itself are very poorly written and described.
Poorly executed, for sure.
Thank you. Poorly executed. That's a good word. Let's start with Edward. He's probably one of the most majorly controversial characters, I would think, celebrated in media.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
You know, everyone loves him, even now. You know,
Mhm.
Team Edward is still honestly going very strong. But you do have the problems where he is essentially abusive. He's an abusive person. He never means to be, obviously, but, you know, most abusers probably don't. He's super controlling, and he's super toxic to Bella. Even, you start from the beginning, and granted, we all know that he couldn't tell her he was a vampire. But the way he gaslights her is just...
It's making her think like she's losing it. And she's like, no, like, I know something isn't right.
And, like, instead of, like, thinking of a gentle lie or something that'll be like, no, like, you're definitely right, like, I'm not, you know, like, he could think of it. So he's had hundreds of years to practice what he should say.
And at one point, I think he does say that she's crazy.
He does. He says, Bella, you're crazy. No one's ever going to believe you.
Yeah.
Like, it's your word against everyone else. Like, that's typical gaslighting.
Not cool.
he gaslights her really bad. Once you do find out, they're just extremely codependent on each other. Like, obviously, you can see that through New Moon, especially. They cannot be separated.
The fact that they're both willing to die because they, quote unquote, cannot live without the other is such an extreme that did not have to happen.
It really highlights unhealthy aspects in a relationship. You should be able to live without your significant other and be alone.
Especially at such a young age.
They're so young, and like, I'm sure it's great if you can find somebody that you want to spend all your time with, but you shouldn't feel suicidal if that person like leaves.
Not at all.
No. So that just really romanticizes a whole aspect that we should not be romanticizing in today's media, especially with a lot of kids watching.
Mm-hmm. You have Bella, who's like just willing to go along with everything he said.
Everything.
Like, there was zero spine on this girl.
You know, whatever. It was always Edward's way or the highway.
Yeah, that's definitely what it seemed like.
Mm-hmm. He had to have full control of what happens in the relationship. In typical abusive fashion, Bella isolates herself with just Edward. She doesn't speak to her friends anymore. She cuts off Charlie pretty much at the beginning in Twilight.
Yeah.
So it's really just her and Edward.
Then you have the fact that Bella asked to be changed. It wasn't
repeatedly
a choice that the Cullens are trying to force on her. I think Bella knew that if she was changed, it would solve a lot of the surface problems between her and Edward.
Yeah, and I think Edward's supposed to be seen as the good guy for not changing her, but you also, no one ever takes into fact what she actually wants.
No.
And I think that's the problem here. It's always what other people want for her, what they think is best for her, but no one really takes into consideration what she wants. And yeah, looking at it objectively, it's a stupid decision to pretty much kill yourself over your boyfriend.
When you're 17.
But that is what she wants, and no one ever thinks, okay, well, let's talk about it, let's talk through it. It's always a no.
Mm-hmm.
She gets no chance to defend her decisions, no chance to maybe even convince them of her decision. It's just always, Bella, no, we are not doing that.
And I think
that's not fair to her.
I think if they did change her, there still would have been a good alternate plot line, like Bella navigating being a new vampire and finishing high school and going to college, like her trying to deal with being a newly undead person and how to navigate that.
And Edward does think that if he changes her life is over. But that's unfair to say because, you know, he's got to experience so much in his 100 years. He's gone to college, you know, who knows how many times.
Mm-hmm.
He's traveled and all that. Bella has just barely seen anything. And honestly, in her human life, we don't know where she could have gone. She might have continued to see pretty much nothing. So it was really kind of wrong of Edward to make that choice when she could have gotten changed, could have still gone to college, could have still...
You could have had like such a more well-rounded plot, I think. You still could have had Victoria coming back wanting to kill Bella. That could have stayed.
And it would have been more on even footing because she would have been able to fight.
Exactly.
She would have been able to really help, which she was not able to do when she was a human. And then, yeah, we would be missing Renesmee from the plot. And you know, a lot of the big contention between her and, like, Rosalie and even her and Edward was that she wouldn't be able to have a family if she was
turned.
But I think Carlisle proved that that's not right.
Yeah.
You know, everyone kind of dismisses the fact that Carlisle did want a family, and he made his family. He adopted people with the same mindset and who were just younger than him. And so maybe she wouldn't have been able to have the Renesmee as a baby and all that, but she still could have formed a family.
There were other options that could have been explored in an alternate plotline.
There were so many things that could have happened throughout that series if she was changed. Honestly, I think it would have been more powerful if she could have really taken an active role in the series instead of stepped behind Edward and let him do everything.
That's really what it was. She was very dormant and really just went along with anything that was laid in front of her. You never really see her putting out ideas of how she wants her life to go, because as long as Edward's there, it's fine.
Yeah, she never gets the opportunity to step up or do anything of interest, really. It's just Edward. Which is definitely one of the reasons why it's controversial, is because she really is not a true character. She doesn't do anything.
No. She's just there. Then you have the other characters who were honestly way more interesting than Bella and Edward.
She could have got so much more attention if she maybe had included like a prequel on like Rosalie's life or Alice's life. Like Rosalie, you know, she has a horrific backstory. She was raped by like, these men, and
one of them was her fiance.
Ends up dying. It's horrible. It's honestly one of the worst like backstories I've heard for a character. It's absolutely saddening, especially since, you know, all she ever did want was a man who truly loved her, a family. It gets thrown in her face just by being turned into a vampire. You know, I think she would have rather died than be turned to a vampire.
You have Rosalie being villainized and really just seen as this bitch of a character throughout the whole series until you read her backstory. And it's like, you know what? All of your actions are completely and utterly justified.
They are. Like, should she have been as mean to Bella as she was? No, it was a bit excessive. But when you come into the fact that she was just jealous of Bella's humanity and that she was mad that Bella was willing to throw it all away, you can definitely see where her actions come from. I don't think it was fair to Rosalie that Myers kind of held that information from us for so long, and that she was supposed to just be seen as like the bitch character.
Yeah.
You know, the antagonist to like Bella. And that wasn't fair to her, because she's so much more than just the pretty girl who's mean.
Exactly. And then you have Alice, who also has a completely traumatizing backstory as well.
So traumatizing that when she gets turned into a vampire, she doesn't even remember it.
And that's really hard to think about. Like, imagine just completely shutting off that part of your life to the point where it's no longer in your memory.
Yeah, like you wake up, you're a creature that you don't know anything about. You're this person, and you're just waking up and you don't know you don't even know your name.
Yeah.
And the only way she knows any of that is because of her visions. And, you know, her visions show her that one day she's going to meet a really nice family who are vegetarians. So she knows, don't eat humans, you know, eat animals, because that's what your family's gonna do. And she also sees Jasper. And so she has this hope that she's gonna find the love of her life. She goes off to meet Jasper, and that's even how she knows her name, is because she heard Jasper, I think, say it. So they find each other, and they find the rest of the Cullens, and then they go back together. But I would love to know more, really, about her backstory, because
if we could get like prequel stories on the supporting characters, I would love that.
Yeah, I don't need another story like Midnight Sun. I need prequel stories.
Yeah, I need some.
If you're going to continue them, I think I would love to go into like some of the other characters. Like, I mean, Emmett really doesn't add anything but humor, but I love him.
He was hilarious.
He was the comedic relief, really, in the book. But he's honestly just such a nice character. He's genuinely nice.
Yeah.
He doesn't really care that he's a vampire. He doesn't care that he technically died. He's just there to live. You know, he got a second chance and he's not going to look it in its face. But then you also have Carlisle, which is like their dad. But it's weird because Carlisle was turned when he was 23. And, you know, she explains that their mentality stays the same when they get turned. So, you know, Edward is 17 is Edward at 17 mentally. So that means Carlisle at 23 is also 23 mentally.
Carlisle at 23, like a 23-year-old guy who is raising 5 teenage kids with a medical degree. He's practicing in the hospital. I understand this is fiction, but I feel like there are some liberties that are just taken a wee bit too far, and this was one of them.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, but if your doctor looked like he came from a frat house pretty much at 23, I would be a little worried that he was like my head doctor. Like, not an intern or anything, my head doctor is this 23-year-old looking man.
And the fact that, like, they're mentally stuck in that age.
That's the thing. There was never... If she wants to stay in that because that was her justification for him... for Edward being with Bella was that he was mentally 17. So it's okay that he's actually 117 because he's mentally 17. And that means Carlisle is mentally 23. And he somehow has enough responsibility to raise these new vampire kids. You know, this wife who, like, committed suicide.
It was, honestly, like, it was all very, very dark.
It's very dark. And we were just expected that this 23-year-old was
I can't get over that. Like, he was 23.
And I get he was a very mature 23, which I am 23 and I have not met a really mature 23-year-old guy yet. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong places because I've not met any Carlisles. But it's a bit hard to believe.
Then there's the most problematic character of all, who you're really just supposed to sympathize for because he's emotional. But I'm sorry, I can't sympathize for Jasper anymore.
No, and I'm honestly sad because he was one of my favorites because I think he had an interesting dynamic within the role of being a new vegetarian vampire.
Yes, he was new to vegetarianism.
And obviously I loved him and Alice, but then Myers really went and just kind of ruined him for me.
I feel like if it wasn't for this summer and Midnight Sun coming out and the books again gaining so much new popularity, Jasper being problematic still would have just flown over my head because, again, I haven't read the books in such a long time that I didn't even remember this until now. Jasper was a Confederate soldier.
Which makes no sense. So this is especially highlighted, I know, in Midnight Sun, but he's constantly described as like a soldier dude. He's really well on the battlefields and all that. Why make him a Confederate soldier when, one, we all know the Confederacy lost, so that makes no sense in his personality aspect.
And then she also makes it seem like he's like, you kind of feel bad for Jasper throughout the entire series until, like, it really kind of clicks in your head. It's like, no,
like, I don't really want to support anyone who's in the Confederate War. Like, no.
It's just, it makes you kind of question her headspace, like, when she wrote that. I feel like the plotline could have still progressed with Jasper being a soldier without that information. It really just seemed like an unnecessary add-on.
Like, honestly, you could have just said that he, like,
was a soldier.
You know, was a soldier in his mortal life. You don't have to go into what he was or anything. Just, he was a soldier, he learned how to fight, he was really good on strategy and battlefields. Keep it like that. There was no need to add in the Confederacy into this novel.
There was no need. Then you have Jacob, who was the typical nice guy.
Yeah, this was, as a 6th or 7th grader reading this, I even picked up on it back then. Nice guys typically aren't nice guys.
No, they're nice until they don't get what they want. Yeah, and then that's what happened. he got rejected, and you really saw this ugly side of Jacob coming out.
He was kind of mean. He was,
yeah.
He also pretty much forced himself on Bella. He kisses her without her consent.
Can we just touch on how a lot of vampire books have teenage girls falling in love with 100-plus-year-old vampires, and the justification is always, well, mentally, they're still a teenager.
Yeah, that's always, honestly, again, when I was younger, I didn't see a problem with that.
Yeah, no.
But as someone who is now a little bit older, I think it's a tad weird that we're romanticizing relationships with beings who are 100 years old going after high school students. It's not even like they're in college, they're high school students.
That's one thing, like, if we're going to have an age gap like that, let's at least make the girls, guys, whatever, let's make them at least old enough to vote. Let's make them legal adults, old enough to drink. Like, can we stop romanticizing children with 100-plus-year-old vampires?
100-plus-year-old anything.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to make a story like that, at least make them, like, mid-20s.
Something
around that age, so it's not like, wow, she's a literal child.
Exactly.
Like, I honestly do love those kinds of stories, but I love them with people who are old enough to consent and also realize the probable power imbalance that would have with someone who's 100
It's a complete
years
power
old.
imbalance. That's the thing. It's such a complete and utter power imbalance. There is no even footing in these relationships.
No, and it's predatory to go after these kids who really would not know better, would obviously see this hot, attractive man and would want to say yes, even though he has so much more experience than her in life in general.
Which also brings in Jacob imprinting on Renesmee, which is also very weird because he's still a teenager, but then this is a newborn baby. And again, the justification is right now it's just more of a familial love, but that could also change once they get older. I think it's said in the book he's always going to be her protector.
Yeah, it's almost heavily implied that once they're both of age, like, they'll be together.
Yeah.
And
there was even, like, fan art of them together, like, once Renesmee gets old. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I don't want to see that. It's essentially, not even essentially, he is grooming her. You have this man who's in her life, knowing that one day they have the potential to fall in love and be together, and it's just, she's gonna grow up knowing him. He probably has, like, Uncle Jake.
Yeah.
And then just to one day be like, but you guys are made to be together. It's really grooming, 100%. I don't like it. I think that she should have made imprinting once they turn into, like, a legal age. That's when you imprint on people.
For both parties involved,
both parties,
too.
100% both parties. Has to be a legal age, and then you can imprint on them. That should have been some part of, like, their puberty or something. That
the
moment, like, you hit legal age, that's when you can
That's
imprint.
when it happens.
No imprinting on literal babies.
Can we talk about the tribe and how this was not a fictional tribe? This is a real tribe. For anyone who did not know, this is a real tribe in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, so essentially Myers took a small part of these people's culture. It's not their whole culture that they are werewolves or whatever. She took a story that they have in their culture where they were wolves and a traveler changed them into humans. That's a really small aspect of it. Obviously that story is a lot more detailed than what I'm saying it is. But they're not werewolves. They are not werewolves, but she saw them as being wolves and used it as part of her story. And
she used it to push her plot.
She definitely uses it to push her plot. She essentially erases their humanity, guys. Like,
yeah.
Completely erases who they are.
There's no way to get around that. She dehumanized them to push her plot line. And I feel like if you really wanted to have werewolves in your plot that bad, even if you wanted it to be like a quote-unquote native, indigenous thing, create a fictional tribe. It would have been a lot more socially correct instead of taking a real life tribe and saying, essentially, you guys are going to be good enough to be werewolves, but you're really not going to get any backstory on them aside from that.
No, we don't
You have
know.
them living on this small reservation, and they're wolves. And that's really it.
Yeah, like, you know, she doesn't give us anything else about their culture. She doesn't show us anything, you know, that really makes them a tribe, except, hey, they have wolves in their tribe, therefore they are werewolves.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's really awful that she completely erases their whole history to that, and they don't even really get to profit off of them being in a movie. And I think that's one of the worst parts, is that, yeah, they do get a bit from tourism. I did read that, you know, some of their places obviously get a little bit more tourist attractions now because of that. But also, none of the profits from the movie go to them, and they're still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
They're a group of like 750 people, and they have one school, and that school is near like a tsunami line or whatever. It's in risk of tsunamis, and so they're trying to move it, and like you'd think from a famous tribe they'd get more help, especially from Myers, who used their whole culture as profit, and they have received nothing of the sort. And so yeah, obviously if you want to help donate to their cause, we'll leave the donation link into the bio.
Yes, we will have some information for you guys.
I would love you guys to actually support the tribe that was written to her stories.
And then Midnight Sun comes out.
Yeah, so, you know, there's been an increase in attraction to Twilight again, and that's because of Midnight Sun.
And like I said in the intro, Allie read Midnight Sun, so I did not have to. And honestly, I was interested in reading it until we talked about it, and I was like, I'm not going to waste my time on this.
Yeah, so I did read Midnight Sun, all 650 something pages of it. I do remember back in 2008 or whenever, she did release part of Edward's point of view of Twilight, and personally, when I read that as a kid, I loved it. So I had high expectations going into this book, because I do love different point of views and like the same scenarios. I love that. So had a lot of hope. And it was honestly just kind of a big letdown. Nothing really happened. I think I would have preferred more information on Edward's backstory.
Like his past.
I think if we focus more on everybody's past, again, like a prequel, it would have been so much better, because she has about 3 or 4 scenes that do go in the past, and they're the most interesting in that whole book. I think it goes back into like Rosalie Nemet's past, more of like him and Carlisle when they were alone, and that was all really fun to read. But besides that, it is exactly Twilight, just with all of Edward's overthinking.
I was going to say, like, it's really just the plot of Twilight rewritten from Edward's point of view. There's nothing new really added in this. It's what we already knew.
No. And the problem with Edward's point of view was it was just the same thing over and over again in every single chapter, where he suffered being in Bella's presence, but he loved her, but he can't change her because he wants to keep her humanity intact. It was just that throughout the whole novel, and just 650 pages of his inner rantings and ramblings. The only good thing I will say about this book is, one, it is much better or well written than Twilight ever was. I can definitely say that her writing style has improved. 2, we finally get to see Bella kind of like as a normal girl, which we never got to see from Bella's point of view, but in Edward's point of view, we get to see her kind of as just an average girl. And she had emotions, which I know we all have problems with the series, is that she's unemotional, but
she was so bland. Like, I don't understand how you write 4 books on a girl who's boring.
Yeah, and it's funnily enough that through Edward's point of view, she's kind of just more of like a human girl with real emotions, and just full on, I don't know, I liked her better, honestly, coming from Edward's point of view.
Wow.
Which is funny because I used to love Edward and her point of view, and I absolutely despise him now. Like, just reading that whole book on his just inner tormentation that he has, it's just, oh guys, it's rough. I mean, I'm not gonna discourage you to read it. If you want to read it, obviously go for it. I do have to say the past scenes that he goes into, you know, his past are interesting enough, but I personally would never touch it again.
Wow.
Yeah. I had definitely a high expectation going into it, but I was let down.
I just think that this is a series that can be retired, if you will.
It needs to be retired.
Let it end with whatever dignity it has left. Let's stop rehashing it.
Especially,
stop trying to bring it, like, stop trying to make it relevant again. Let's just let it. It was a good phase. The phase is over. Let's stop it now.
Especially since she has released that she plans on releasing 3 more books for the Twilight series.
If it's gonna be the same plot, just from Edward's point of view, there's no need for it.
There's no need. Honestly, after reading Midnight Sun, I can say that I have no want for it.
I think we've all just moved past it now.
Even if they are like different books, maybe in the Twilight world, I don't know if I want them. I just kind of want Twilight to be done, its story closed. It's good to reminisce on it, you know, it's good to watch the movies
once in a blue moon, but there's no need to keep on with the same characters unless there's something new coming to the table. Just let it be done.
I think, especially after seeing how her writing has improved, I think she would do a lot better writing a new series, you know? I think she should branch out, find something else that she'd want to write about, and go for that. I don't think we need to continue Twilight or anything like the sort, and I don't have high expectations for these next books, especially since they are within the Twilight series.
Stephanie Myers, can we please let Twilight end peacefully as it can, now knowing Jasper's a Confederate soldier? Can we just let it end?
Yeah, it's the one wish I would have. Like, this was my childhood series, and I think it should stay in my childhood.
Yeah, I think we've all grown up, we've branched out, we are ready for something new that's not Twilight.
Yeah, so that was our
Twilight
episode. We obviously had a lot to say.
That was a doozy.
Wow. But that was years of holding all of that together and holding that story in my mind.
And having it just be reintroduced.
Definitely.
To the world.
I think it's good to look at books that you read as kids and look at them with an adult mind.
Just reevaluate, see what flew over your head as a kid that you see now that just doesn't make sense or isn't right, and just take a look back and see, like, this book that you completely revered as a child, was it really worth it?
No.
I don't think this one was worth it.
I don't think this one was worth it. I honestly, after reading Twilight now pretty much 2 times in a year because of Midnight Sun, I can say I'm pretty much done with it. I want to close the book on this, close the chapter.
We're gonna close the chapter on Twilight.
Yeah. And so that will be our conclusion to this episode. So thank you for listening.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
I hope you guys can share your opinions on it. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, we'll see you with our next episode. Bye.
Bye.